Who's better, Matt or Tommy?
Is an incredible singer as well.
Really?
And he auditioned for X Factor.
What? Right, everyone, this is a very, very special episode of The Cool Down with me, Tomo JESS1, whatever you want to call me. I've got my very first guest. We don't have any races, no post-race nonsense today. We're in for a chat with, well, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Oh, hi. Hey guys, it's Jess. However you want to introduce me, because I know I've been in between jobs, so you probably know me from WTF1, but now I'm at the Motorsport Network, so I'm JESS McFADYEN. Let's go with like my individual handle.
Yeah, we'll get into that, Jess, because I'm sure everyone is very, very interested after you dropped that massive bombshell that you're leaving WTF1, and now you've picked a great time to start though, haven't you? I mean, I guess, look, that's obviously the burning question. I don't know, just tell us all about it. What led to, well, actually, first of all, how's it been starting when we're all in quarantine? Like, how's it been? What's the situation?
It's been mad, and it's kind of like, I think we take for granted how many touch points you need with people. Definitely, and especially starting a new job. Like I know a couple of people because, and maybe we'll touch on this a little later on, but I used to work at Autosport before I worked for WTF1, so it's lucky that I do know some key people there. But yeah, it's all been done via like Microsoft Teams, web chats, video chats, but yeah, it's a weird time, but I think everybody's feeling it is a weird time, so everyone's been really thoughtful in terms of trying to get me introduced to as many people as possible so that it doesn't feel like I'm out here on my own, because yeah, everybody is. So yeah, but it's been so far so good. It's my end of my first week, and obviously missing the guys, but
of course,
no, it's been real good. It's been really good.
Well, so I mean, obviously it's hard to know because you haven't actually been there in the flesh yet, but in terms of kind of team size from WTF1 to where you are now, like how is that dynamic? How is that going to change? Like from an external point of view looking in, obviously we only, like, as viewers consuming the WTF1 stuff, we see you, we see Tommy, we see Matty, and otherwise we don't really see too much else. Like, in terms of behind the scenes, how is it looking to change?
Yeah, I mean, going from, we were a team of 4 at WTF1, it was obviously everything we did, we had to take on numerous roles, do numerous different things and work very, very closely together. And now I'm finding myself in, Motorsport Network is huge, and it's got more than one brand, and a lot of key players that have to be involved in decision making and things. And it's I'm lucky in that I have worked for large companies before, so I kind of was used to that dynamic, and then I made a switch to starting for a startup. But I think actually having that kind of more nimble approach to things, being very used to things being last minute or kind of, we've got an idea, can we make it happen, is actually going to be very useful for me going into a large organization to kind of try and get things moving quicker, because I think that's always, for big companies, it's always a bit of a sticking point. And also just to bring some fun as well, because
absolutely,
that's all me and the guys, not all me and the guys would do, but everything that we wanted to give at least to the fans was that fun approach, very warm, welcoming kind of thing. So that's kind of another thing that is going to kind of stand me in good stead, I think, at the new place.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's better to go, I've found, from a smaller place to a bigger place rather than the other way around, because again, you develop more kind of thinking on your feet, running and gunning, like actually making decisions on the go and not being, there's going to be more bureaucracy when you go to a bigger place, of course, but I guess that's all part of it. But yeah, it's amazing. Like, in terms of the position for you, obviously delving as deep as you'd like to, so your role was head of WTF1, is that correct? Am I right?
It was, yeah.
And then your new role, is that talk about a step up or a side step, like how do you consider that for your kind of long-term like development? I mean, do you have a I guess what I'm trying to ask is, do you have an end goal in mind, or are you just kind of like making decisions based on what you feel is best for you at the time?
Yeah, so I guess that kind of leads into the question that I got asked a lot, which was, why the hell would you leave WTF1?
Why?
Right?
Why would you
Why?
leave Tommy and Matty? Why would you do it, Jess?
Why would I break the band up? You know, like I'm like Ginger Spice breaking up the Spice Girls, right? Which
Yeah.
it's not true, because they're gonna be fine, you know.
The Spice Girls will remain.
But no, I guess it definitely wasn't an easy decision. It was a decision that it kind of came. So my main motivation in anything I do that kind of was realized at WTF1 was that I am driven by making sure that as many people as possible can get into motorsport and to access motorsport. And a big part of that player is what the media does and how the media communicates with fans and engages with fans and listens to what the fans want, and then go out and seek that in industry and bring it out of the sports. So WTF1 obviously was the perfect playing ground for me to be able to live that out. But, you know, I also kept thinking there are these other brands that are maybe more established, that are slightly closer to the sport, that can also use that input and that directive to be able to really, really give back. So as much as it was tough to decide to leave, I think for me personally, this has definitely been a jump up, but it's also going to allow me to make sure that fans are very much at the center of content, and kind of having that more relatable feel to some huge brands. I mean, Autosport has been around since the very first Grand Prix. It's 70 years old, but it needs some like future proofing.
It needs a breath of fresh air.
Yeah. So, and
Absolutely.
I love Autosport is where I started my motorsport career. So the ability to come back and kind of use what I've learned and bring. Obviously, we're not. There's never going to be another WTF1, right? Let's just get that like straight. There's never going to be another WTF1, but that's not to say that brands like Autosport can't be a bit more fan friendly.
Absolutely.
So that was kind of the reason why. And in terms of like an end point, no, I don't really have one. It's as I just want to make sure that I can give back to the fans as much as possible and bring fans into the sport as much as possible. So if that leads me down other paths, then that might be the case. But I think for now I've got a big job to do here at the network, which is really, really exciting. And so the first thing that we've been working on is obviously working with Veloce Esports to help bring esports events for where there should have been races that have now been cancelled. So even that is just a massive step in the right direction, I think, in terms of helping to work with the fans and giving more back. So yeah, it's as I said, not an easy decision, but I think it was a good one for me personally.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I again, I think from a consumer of content point of view, what WTF1 was able to offer that the bigger, you know, YouTube channels and pages don't, is that in the same way that what I like about what Liberty Media have enabled in the drivers to be able to communicate their personality, and because ultimately there's nothing that appeals more than people. And, you know, when you've got nondescript individuals just reciting news versus actual personalities like you, like Matty, like Tommy, like actual, you know, people that as a viewer, you feel much more kind of, I don't know, you engage with them a lot more.
Right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And I think obviously if you can bring that into Autosport and these other channels and make them look a bit less brand and a bit more person, then, you know, I think you're onto a good thing. But yeah, it sounds like an amazing opportunity. I mean, how is that going to eventually, when you eventually start going into work, when we all do, when we're all out of home, how is that going to affect your like daily, like your commute? Is it much longer? Like, is it still in London? Is it in London? Have you been working in London?
Yeah, they're based in southwest London, so not in the centre, and that's really good because that's where I am as well. So genuinely, my commute has gone from an hour to 20 minutes. So
amazing.
yeah, for like personal wise, plenty more time to jump on Twitter and say stupid things.
Exactly.
So is that a good thing? Maybe we'll wait and see.
That's the you think, like, so you're getting over an hour back every day of JESS time that isn't, you know, sitting on a train and, you know, around, you know, diseased people.
Yeah, let's hope not.
But yeah, so well, something else I wanted to ask as well is obviously with your I had little LinkedIn stalk, you know, to see like, you got it, you know, it's public domain, you know, it's fine. In terms of on camera, when did that start for you, and how? Because so again, for me, I've been setting up a camera and talking to myself for years now, so I'm kind of quite used to it, obviously, and I've been able to, you know, I can get quite relaxed. And when I tell friends and ask people, oh, would you want to do a video with me? And everyone gets very rigid and like, how did, like, when did that first start for you, and how have you found that? Was that always the plan? Were you always quite content with almost like being on camera, or was behind the scenes more? Like, how did that work out for you?
So I was the businesswoman behind the scenes. You know, my job at WTF1 in the first instance was just to kind of take us from being considered as just like a meme page into actually fully fledged motorsport media outlet that has a seat at the table with the big boys, you know, and being that fanboy. So that was my focus, and it was until my very last day. That's still what I was working on predominantly. But podcasting is something that we had as a group we'd always wanted to do, but obviously in order to do that you kind of need voices, and you need personalities, and you need kind of a group of people to bounce things off, because as much as like a one-on-one is good, it is usually in an interview environment, so you're learning something about the individual. But when, definitely, you know, as grateful as we were for the guests, like we had some really good guests on, it was kind of not always guaranteed. So we kind of thought, you know, when we're sat in the office talking about the race, we're like making jokes and throwing banter around, and because we got on so well as a threesome, it was, well, why don't we just put this on camera and have a podcast? So that's where it started. And I think, you know, what became apparent pretty kind of further on into the project was that people actually really liked the fact that the three of us were very, very different in terms of what we represented as F1 fans. So, you know, Tommy has insane encyclopedic knowledge of history. Matty obviously has more of the gaming side of things. And then from my perspective, not to kind of like label, because I don't like labels, but, you know, having a female fan who is kind of willing to say, you know, Bottas bash and all that kind of stuff was, I think, something a bit different. And a lot of the messages I get are from female fans that say, you know, I actually feel like I can be an F1 fan. And that sounds ridiculous, because everybody should be able to feel like they're an F1 fan. But I think having somebody who you relate to and recognize in the space helps you to then be like, actually, yeah, do you know what? Like, I'm going to have an opinion on F1, and I'm allowed it. So yeah, that's kind of why it came about and why I stayed on it, which was really tough. In I can't even go back to the first podcast we did, really, because they were horrendous. But, you know, I stuck at it because I thought it was important. But yeah, it was never really the plan. It was kind of just, let's just try this out and see how it goes. And if it works, then we'll keep doing it. So, but I've always been a drama queen, like from the word go. I was always. How has that
manifested itself, Jess?
Yeah.
Come on, you can't say that and not give examples.
Well, I don't know, like, so primary school, right? Okay. I always auditioned for the lead role in the school play.
Oh yeah. Fair.
If I didn't, so here's a great. I've never told anyone this story.
Oh, here we go. Exclusive. This is what I wanted.
So when I was in like nursery school, so you're talking, I was probably age 3 or 4.
Yeah.
You do a school nativity, right, at Christmas time, and obviously in my first year I was Mary. Duh.
I was Joseph in mine.
Were you? Well, there you go.
It's meant to be. Those are the days.
Those were the days, right? When all you had to do was hold like a fake baby and just kind of sit there and be like, oh, I am the Virgin Mary. But the second year, because I had such a large part in the first year, second year, they were like, now you're a shepherd.
Oh,
I'm
you can't
sorry.
do that, man. You
I'm
can't do
sorry,
that.
what? So apparently I kicked off at the fact that I was going to be
Because you
made
were
a
ousted
shepherd.
from your throne.
I was like, who's Mary? Like, what the hell? Like, this is my role. But anyway, so didn't get Mary, but I got the angel Gabriel, who had the most amount of speaking lines in the entire thing.
So you
So
still managed to,
I had to have my chance to shine, like not everyone's got talent like that. No, I'm kidding.
Exactly.
But yeah,
Hey,
that's
you'll be your own biggest fan. You know what I mean? Like, if you're gonna get anywhere in life,
back yourself.
be your own
That's all
hype.
anybody can do. Yeah, be your own
Exactly.
hype man or whatever. So
And
yeah,
actually, this is funny. It's funny you should say that. So, in terms of you've got to say newfound fame, because Twitter blows up. As soon as you start getting on camera on a platform as big as WTF1, you're going to start getting.
yeah.
Like, how have you found that? Like, going from behind the scenes to all of a sudden very much in the. I know F1 is still, it's a niche. It's a bit of an echo chamber, but it's still
Yeah.
you're very well known within the social kind of community. How have you found that personally?
Bizarre, because I keep saying to people, I'm just Jess. I'm not like, and again, like, not to take this away from Matty, but I think Matty was born to do this kind of stuff. Very, very easy, natural on camera, and he loves it as much as, like, I think I hope he's not going to kill me for saying this, but he's a very self-conscious person, and he really cares about how he's perceived and what people think of him, but which I don't think always comes across on camera. I think it's very easy to think, oh my god, he must be confident all the time, or some people are like, what a dick, and it's only because you get a glimpse of what people are really like. So I mean, I don't consider myself famous. I guess, I have a following, which is weird, but
Are you an influencer?
I'm not going to use that word. I'm not going to use that word.
It's a very charged word, isn't it, influencer?
It is, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, because I guess my argument would be we're all influencers, because there will be people in your social circles that come to you for certain things, or
absolutely.
So we all are. It's just, I guess, like, I've just got a bunch of people I don't know that are watching what I do. But I guess, like, you definitely get more aware of. So, for instance, I've archived so many of my Instagram pics, because I'm like, oh my god, not that anything was wrong with them, but you're like, oh god, someone's going to judge me for putting that up. And obviously we've all got a history and a past, and I would hope that there's nothing on there that would ever offend anybody, but you do kind of find yourself thinking more about, okay, I have this platform that thousands of people are going to see and interact with, and you kind of have to double check, is this the right thing, or are people going to come after me for saying this, or are people going to, like, unfollow me? But I guess you just kind of, for me, because it's not the be all and end all of what I do, it's I love the people that follow me and send me messages and I try and interact with as many people as possible, because I feel thankful that anybody would want to follow me. But just making sure I'm giving back as much as, like, they're giving me, in terms of supporting what I do. Like, I was genuinely crapping myself about announcing that I was leaving WTF1. I was like, everyone's going to unfollow me, everyone's going to, like, come after me for breaking the band up. But I was genuinely overwhelmed with how many people were supporting me, and I think that's probably the first time I thought, actually, people are following me for me, and not just the brand that I work for. So it's a kind of a two-way thing. I'm so lucky that I very, very rarely get any hate nowadays. You get the odd comment, but you just kind of brush it off.
Of course,
yeah. But I've very, very rarely got any, like, abuse. So I love the fact that the little community that I've managed to build is just so friendly and open, and just wants the best for one another, because they genuinely do. And I think there needs to be more of that, especially in F1. like supporting one another is really important. And especially like at times like this where nobody really knows what's going on, it's good to know that there's like a community you can reach out to and have a chat with, because yes, what's better than that, really?
Exactly. Well, no, I think this is actually another very good segue, because I was actually gonna talk about. So I've come across on Twitter quite recently a few posts that have, particularly from females who are into F1 and have big Twitter followings, talking about toxicity within the group. And obviously, again, you always, unfortunately, again, coming from football where it's a very toxic community. And in the grand scheme of things, I mean, I've always been massively into motorsports, but in terms of into the actual F1 Twitter community, because I love Twitter, that's by far and away my favorite social media platform because of the conversation. And I was, obviously, since I've started my stuff, I've not really experienced any of that. I mean, I've had the odd, comment saying they don't like my editing style, but that's pretty much it. But again, from you, and obviously I know you mentioned earlier about the kind of, I guess maybe, would I be right saying degree of responsibility you feel as a female with your position within the community to inspire other women? And like, what's your view on the whole, like, I know you said you haven't experienced much of it yourself, but I mean, how do we, it's obviously is out there because people are talking about it, and to again, it must, I say to a lesser extent, it's not, a widespread issue, but it's still an issue nonetheless. Like, how do we kind of confront that? Like, what do you think is the best way of approaching that and dealing with these, essentially trolls, isn't it?
Yeah. So obviously, first and foremost, I think it's important to say that I can't speak for everybody, and everybody has a different experience of kind of existing in these areas. And I, again, as I said, I've been very lucky in that I haven't really had too much abuse. But for me, I think it's two-way, right? It's a bit like a relationship. Firstly, I would love for us to be in a scenario where we're not labeling one another as like female or non-female, or
that's the end goal, isn't it? Absolutely.
Is the end goal. I understand, like, maybe it has to, like, that's why kind of when people say, oh, isn't it amazing that, Jess, you're a woman in motorsport, I try not to take offense to it, because for me, I just consider myself Jess in motorsport, and I happen to be female. But again, like, that's maybe a privileged position that I find myself in. But it's hard, because as much as like there needs to be a lot of education in terms of, these girls and these women have every right to be there, and they're trying to get involved in a sport that you also love, which can only be good for the sport. Because guess what? If people don't follow F1, there ain't gonna be no F1. So the fact that you are saying that only certain people, and it's not even just with women, there's the thing that I hate seeing is when people come at people for not having followed it their whole lives.
Yeah, like Drive to Survive fans, there's been a lot of people been on people for, oh, you're just a fan through Drive to Survive. What? Great, no. Sweet, more revenue, more value to the sponsors that keep the sport afloat. It's such a short-sighted, like, oh, this is my sport, no one else can enjoy my things. It's I mean, again, like from my point of view, the kind of people who put out this negativity, and again, like whenever I'll get a bad comment or whatever, to me, it's just a reflection on how they feel about themselves. And
it's bullying, right? It's bullying 101.
Exactly.
And people feel the need to elevate themselves by putting other people down, or getting very tribal about what's important to them. So that's why, I mean, it's two-way. Like, first off, it's like trying to, it's essentially, you have to force things on people sometimes, right? And I don't mean that in an aggressive way, but it kind of links back to what I was saying about the podcast. Like, and the first time I was in the podcast, I had horrible comments, and the easiest thing for me to have done maybe was to hide away and never be on a podcast again. But if you stick at it, like whenever I have like girls message me and say, I sometimes don't feel welcome here and it's horrid, the first thing I say is, who gives a shit about what other people are saying to you? Which is, again, very easy to say, but what I'm trying to get at is that people need to have the strength in their own mentality to feel like, actually, do you know what? I deserve my seat at this table, and I deserve to be an F1 fan, because who said I couldn't? you know, apart from these idiots that are kind of coming at me for reasons unknown. So as much as there definitely needs to be more awareness made, and I think a big part of that is, having diversity within those that are involved in motorsport, but also giving women and girls and whoever else is feeling like they're being attacked for not being able to be an F1 fan, is that inner strength to go, these comments shouldn't affect the fact that I love this sport and this sport is mine. And so I hugely advocate for blocking people on social media that are toxic, that are, you know, I don't have a huge block list. Like I said, I'm lucky, but as soon as anybody comes at me, and this is the difference, right? You're allowed to debate. You're allowed to not agree with one another. But the minute it gets personal, the second anyone comes at me for the way I look, or my body type, or the fact that I'm a woman, or anything, you're getting blocked, mate. Like, see you later. Because I'm very happy to have a conversation about, maybe I was wrong on a podcast. Like, maybe I said something that wasn't correct, and that's fine. But the minute you start making it personal and you insult me, you're not the kind of person.
There's no dialogue there, is there? They're not looking for a debate. They're just looking to pick holes and, again, push you down to elevate themselves. It's a waste of your time to try and to give them oxygen. This is what I mean about, like, just like giving them oxygen. Clapping back is the worst thing you can do, because that's what they want. That's their lifeblood. That's what keeps them going. And
Absolutely.
It's a sad reality. You know, as human beings, we're not designed to, you know, for 99.999% of human existence, we only knew what was going on in our little bubble. And now the whole world has been opened up to us, and everyone's got a voice now as much as anyone else. And you know, we're not designed to take this level of, like, input, and you've got to build that's the thing. Like, I still remember my first really horrible comment, like, years ago. I pretty much remember word for word what it was. And this is like 4 years ago. I remember at the time I was like, damn. I was like, wow, that's I mean, I think of myself, I'm very kind of happy and confident in where I am in my life. And even, like, and I'd say I'm way more confident than most of my friends and people I know, just in terms of being really happy and content in myself. But even then I was like, geez, like, that hurt.
It does. I think people forget that there are real humans at the other end of those words. And the thing that everyone says is, like, well, if they met you in the street, they'd never say that to you, because there's no accountability when you're online. Exactly. You know, you can have this stupid little egg avatar on Twitter, you know, have no followers, and yet that you can say something like, I got called. So someone said to me not long ago, "You're a C next Tuesday, go kill yourself." And it's like, as much as I know that person doesn't mean that, what they're after is my reaction. What they're after is to know, you are this person that is seemingly untouchable, and I've touched you. Like, I've got you. And that's what they get their kicks out of. It's like, haha, I've worked my way through and got to you at the other end, and doesn't that make me look big? But it's difficult. I genuinely have to go through and try and read nice things, because those it takes one negative comment, doesn't it? Like, that you might have had on that same platform or whatever, like, a million comments saying, oh my God, Tom, aren't you doing an amazing job? Like, this is amazing. Love this video, blah, blah, blah. One person says, shit edit, mate. And you're like, oh God, I'm gonna have to change my entire channel. And isn't that
delete it all?
Yeah, exactly.
Re-upload.
It's madness.
It is crazy.
Unfortunately, it is just, as much as social is amazing, and, like, without social, I wouldn't be where I am in my career at all. It also has that negative side, but it is just about that ability to feel like you are in control. Like as much as people might get to you, and as horrid as it is, and all those people need a, like, reality check.
So WTF1 standout moment working there. What's your standout? And it doesn't have to be in front of the camera. It could be behind the scenes. It could have been anything. What, if you had to pick one moment for your whole time there, what would it be?
I think so there's a story that I think we all kind of agree, everybody that worked at WTF1 was kind of our what the fuck moment. And it was, WTF1 works very closely with Baku City Circuit. And so it was back in 2017. We'd relaunched in the March, kind of under new ownership, because at that point, that's when CarThrottle had just acquired it. And that's when I first started working with Tommy and Matty. So we kind of had this mental time of growth in terms of fans, but this was when I was trying to make us well known and understood in industry. And so a part of that was working with Baku City Circuit, and it was at the end of the 2017 season. So we'd been at Abu Dhabi, which was awesome. It was like our first Grand Prix there as a media outlet. And then we flew from Abu Dhabi to London, stayed overnight in an airport hotel, and then flew to Baku, because Daniel Ricciardo was doing a appearance for Baku, and Baku, the circuit wanted us to help capture it and do some social stuff around it. And we were told, you'll get time to interview him for your channels. And we were like, oh my God, this is like the first, I think it was the first ever driver interview we did. Oh no, I tell a lie. We did some stuff with Vettel, which was mental to kick off. But this was kind of going to be our first kind of do whatever you want interview, rather than you've got 2 questions. So we went to this dinner as part of it, and we kind of had very, he'd been around a lot of people. There was a lot of media there. And so we kind of felt like, oh, we're nobodies. So at this dinner, there were like a bunch of tables, and we sat off to one side. And after, we were obviously like still very excited that we're around Daniel Ricciardo.
Of course. And, oh my God, I don't know what I'd do.
Daniel. And he shouted over at us, and we were like, what? And because you need a little bit of a backstory context, but Matty had interviewed him very, very briefly at COTA in 2017, so a couple of months before, and Daniel revealed that he'd never seen Mary Poppins. Weird thing to find out in an interview, but we ran with it. So he kept calling Matty Mary, and then because we could hear like him shouting Mary, Mary, we were like, what's going on? And he was shouting at Matty, like calling him Mary, because he remembered. And we were all like, this is a bit bizarre. Anyway, he's surrounded by media people on his own table. He gets up and comes over and sits with us. And we're like, we're sat having wine with Daniel Ricciardo. And he's chatting to us, and he's like, no, you guys are the cool kids. We love what you do. It's so needed. It's so funny. Like, love your stuff, blah, blah, blah. And then we just got drunk.
You got smashed with Daniel Ricciardo.
We got smashed with Daniel Ricciardo. He actually, to be fair, he was being sensible, but we were nervous drinking. Like, oh my God, this is Daniel Ricciardo. And I think that night was when we just kind of had this moment where we were like, oh my God, they know who we are. They know what we're doing. And then the next day we spent 2 hours with him, just filming with him and chatting. And he told us some outrageous stuff, which I can't repeat, unfortunately. But I think that was kind of that moment where we were like, holy shit, we've made it. So I think in terms of stand-up, that's something that will never, ever leave my brain or, my experiences at WTF1. It was just like, we've done this now, like somebody know. And he still calls us peasants whenever we see him, but he's always smiling. Like whenever he sees the guys, he just knows that it's going to be something fun. So,
well, it must be a nice break for the drivers. Particularly Daniel. And they talk about the media being this kind of massive chore, and then coming to you guys where, I guess, that's the recognition that, not that you kind of, I mean, it must be nice to receive that recognition from an actual driver because ultimately, yes, you're creating content for us as viewers, but also you're working with these guys and you're a part of their lives and a part of their work. So, it must be nice to know that that's, the media nonsense that everyone has, Daniel's like, but the WTF1 guys though, that'll be a laugh.
Yeah, it definitely was. And obviously it's something that I'm keen to kind of, as far as possible, kind of bring with me in this new role, like that there'll be an element of that, because it's so, when the driver's looking down a list of their media responsibilities and they see like WTF1 and they know it's going to be something fun, it creates a whole different dynamic. Like they come at it with a different attitude, because I think they know also, like, WTF1's role was never to kind of catch anybody out or ask difficult questions. It was more about, what the fans want to know that's
exactly
around F1, rather than,
and
why did you mess up on track kind of
you're
thing.
echoing how I feel that fans would actually want to approach. Like if I was a fan and I met Daniel Ricciardo, I wouldn't be asking him about how much camber he's got on his car. I'd be asking him about, like, what's his favorite flavor crisps, or, what's it, obviously not to that extent, but you know what I mean?
There's a space for both, right? Because there are going to be
course.
people that want to know how much camber, or like, how did the C2 tire feel compared to the C3? Like there are still going to be those people, which is why I think it's important to embrace both. But yeah, you're right. You're totally right. Like, as it was always, and kind of the approach that I've always taken is, how does this impact the fan? Like, what, a news story comes out, right? But actually, what does that mean to the people that are reading this, rather than we're just reporting on news? It's more like, okay, report on the news, but then the follow-up should always be, how does it impact you as an F1 fan? Like, what does this mean? So yeah, definitely, like, my approach has always been fan, genuinely, like, coming at it. What would a fan want to know? Like, I remember the first ever interview that WTF1 got was with Lewis Hamilton. And it was at the 2017.
Gone in at the top.
I know, right? We were like, so when we launched the WTF1 YouTube channel, the first person we interviewed was Lewis Hamilton, and Matty drove an F1 car, and we were like, right, with Pete, we should just go home. Like, we can't.
How can you beat that?
Where do we go from here? Like, we were expecting this maybe in a couple of years, but genuinely within the first 3 months, we were like, Jesus Christ, we're gonna have to come up with some real good shit now. So
it forced you to, I suppose, didn't it? You got to keep on delivering. And again, that's I think actually I saw on your LinkedIn an article about Lewis Hamilton and why you asked him about his dogs, because to humanize, and that's the thing. We look at these drivers as these kind of, these gods almost. We only see them on telly. We only see them as little, figures when you go to the tracks. You don't actually, like, when you can connect with them as real people. I think, like, for me, I only really got back into, I mean, I've been a lifelong motorsport fan. No one else in my family was. I don't know why. It just clicked with me. And I kind of fell out of love with F1 for a bit, probably from like 2014 to about 2017. And I think what did pull me back is that there seemed to be, again, like this season with Daniel, Lando, Alex in particular, I feel like I've, as a fan, been able to connect with those guys so much as people, and it just makes me so much more invested in the real, like, stories behind these characters, because you can just watch a race and you can view it from the standpoint as, oh, these are just cars driving around the track, and it's just these, nondescript people, and you can enjoy the racing. But actually, when you really get into knowing and feeling like you do know the drivers, it just makes it a way more compelling thing. And I think that's why Drive to Survive has done so well in terms of bringing new people on board, is because it's been telling drivers and giving a real, like, insight into who these people, who they are as actual real people like you and me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think especially because it's not like other sports where, if you think about when you watch a Grand Prix, there is no point that you can actually see the driver until the event's over and they've jumped out and they're on the podium. That's the only time really that during the sport, during the series, you get to see the human. And even then, they're wearing a helmet. Whereas when you're watching a football match, right, you can see the emotion. When they cock up, like, you can see they get pissed off. There's a real human connection and interaction. When you watch Formula One, you don't get that. So you're right, having those people that are, and the other thing I also do kind of harp on about is we demand a lot from these drivers on the media side, like a lot. And as much as other sports stars have a similar amount, I do think, like, there's something about F1 where it's the demand is huge. So as much as absolutely, We need to have those human stories. I think there is kind of this, you know, it's why, if you remember what happened with Lewis Hamilton when he made the slightly inappropriate comment about his nephew wearing a dress, that really affected him. Like the response to that media wise really affected him, and it then changed the way that he handled the media. Like he's not, I would never say that he's a diva, but he, you know, he's now way more aware of it, because the reason he gets on a scooter through the paddock is because he genuinely would not get from A to B to do his job if he couldn't evade people. It is insane. It's crazy. And, you know, I'm not trying to like play Lewis a violin or whatever, because I guess you could argue it comes with the territory when you're a world champion, you know, about to, well, maybe equal Schumacher's record. Like, it comes with the territory, and obviously he's very active outside of F1 as well, but that's what the sport needs. But that also shouldn't mean that these drivers are punished, because they're entertaining us. They're giving us this insight or look into their worlds, and that's something we shouldn't take for granted, I don't think.
No, absolutely. And it's a shame that the media for so many drivers has become this negative thing. Like, it should be fun, because again, like as consumers, we like, the whole point of the media is to inform us. So we don't want the drivers to feel like because again, that's where people breed discontent around thinking Lewis is a diva, blah, 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 because it's this thing that unfortunately has created so much negativity around the paddock. And again, it's just refreshing when we see guys like WTF1 who, you know, you have a different angle. And actually, you know, I like to think as time goes on and more medias, and obviously with your new position now, you've actually got the opportunity to really inform that and make it more of a, like, it's a big deal, Jess. Like, you I think you're going to have some real, like, I'm very fascinated to see how things change now, because obviously you're in this position where you've got this insight and you've got you've got numbers, you can back up what you're saying. It's not just, oh, we should be more fun with the drivers. Like, there's actual real, like, you know, data behind, you know, people connecting with it more and all that. But it's amazing.
Yeah, no pressure.
No pressure, mate. No pressure at all. No pressure indeed. But what I will ask as well is, what are you going to miss most from working with WTF1? Feel free to cry.
Yeah, no, you're trying to make me. I know it's content, Tomo, but making me cry is a bit. No,
I cried on every single I did 3 videos on Drive to Survive, and I cried on every single one of them. So it's fine.
I'm gonna have to dive into those and see.
I'm a soppy git. What can I say?
No, it'll genuinely be working with the guys. We were such a family. We had to be. We went through the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, and we did it together. And, you know, it's going to be very hard to replicate that. We were very close. So, like, genuinely, it's going to be working with those guys that I miss the most. But, you know, we've all said, you know, never say never. You don't know what's going to happen in the future.
Of course not. Absolutely.
You know, we've parted ways at this point, but, you know, I'm messaged, like, Tommy and I are messaging all the time, Matty and I are messaging all the time, even though I'm not there anymore, and it's usually to, like, send each other memes or whatever, or but, you know, so I know that won't go away, and I've built incredible friendships with them. So, but that is definitely going to be the biggest thing I miss.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you see him in the paddock as well as things go on.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm like, come on, guys, get your butts over here and let's have some fun.
That'd be amazing. But yeah, that's great, Jess. I love it. Well, okay, so now I want to, you know, there's going to be a lot of people watching this who see your position and working in F1, and even me, you know, to a lesser extent, you know, I'll consider this now, like, this has given me some income now, and I'm technically siphoning a little bit of the F1 moolah. But in terms of, like, your first big break, and I know you mentioned Autosport was your first job in motorsport. How did that come about? Was that because, again, I know that, so you studied English at university?
I did,
and
yeah.
So again, I guess multiple questions rolled into one. You came out of a completely, like, non-motorsport specific degree. Was that always the plan to get into motorsport? And if so, like, how did that manifest itself as such?
I think, you know, it's easy to look at all these people that you would, I mean, it sounds weird. I don't know if people admire me, but
of course they do.
Oh, it just feels weird. But I think it's very easy to think that people have a plan. The whole reason I did English literature at uni was because I had no plan. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that having a degree would help me in the long run, and having a degree that was easily transferable depending on what I wanted to do was also a good thing to do. So, you know, there were points where I was having a chat about this before I came on. There were points where I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to be a scene of crimes officer at one point, but then I realized I'm not very good with blood, so probably.
I'm not very good. Who is? Put that on your LinkedIn. I'm great with murder.
Yeah, can handle murder, no problem. But no, there wasn't a plan. And I'd always been fascinated with advertising and media. So, you know, I watched that film, what's it called? What Women Want, with Mel Gibson. Like, everybody watching this is probably going to be, one, who, and two, what. I had it on VHS as well, so that's kind of
back in the day.
But it was all about an advertising agency, and I loved it. I've always loved storytelling, right? I'm a storyteller. I think that's to put it, like, I'm going to add that to my LinkedIn, storyteller. I'm going to be one of those knobs that have, like, they don't have their job description, they're just like storyteller,
visual storyteller.
Yeah, exactly. But but what ended up happening was I was in my final year, kind of was like, ooh, I should probably get a job. And it was just before I graduated. Where my parents live in Southwest London was actually was next door pretty much to a place called Haymarket Media, which owned Autosport at the time. So they had graduate jobs, which were media sales. And I didn't even really know what media sales meant, but it was media, and it had
buzzword.
Yeah. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna
cars and media, yes, please.
I'm just gonna see if I can get an interview, and I did, and there was a role on Autosport and a role on a title called Management Today. It's a business title, and I was like, oh, please put me on Autosport. If I get the job, please put me on Autosport. Lo and behold, I ended up on Management Today. But so that's what I started selling. I was selling, so, you know, in magazines, you get the small ads at the back of the magazine. That's what I was selling. And that's where I started. But where I sat on the Management Today team, behind me were Autosport. And so I would spend a lot of my time chatting to them about the races, like turning around, making friends with everybody. And then I was on Management Today for a while. I was on there for like 2 years, maybe. And then in my third year, a spot opened up on Autosport, and I grabbed it with both hands. Like, please let my job be talking about Formula One all day. And again, I was a salesperson, so I went from selling the ads at the back of the magazine to those annoying ones you see on websites that stop you from reading any of the articles.
You're the reason. I know I went to uni in Bournemouth, and the Bournemouth Echo website is on mobile. It's unreadable. You go on it, and it's just, you get the title. I can never find the actual story. It's just all these bloody adverts. You're the reason, Jess.
Yeah, I was. But genuinely, that was the reason I left. Was because you know, there was more and more pressure to sell this stuff, but the media landscape was changing, even just in advertising, changing rapidly. And that was about the time that, you know, social media was starting to be used by businesses and by brands, not just something you'd upload, you know, your entire album of your holiday to Benidorm. So I was very much like, this is the future of media. We need to be doing this on Autosport, otherwise we're going to get left behind. And at that point, it just wasn't a priority. So I kind of took it on. It was a pure big risk, because I'd gone from this job, like, you know, my first gig with Autosport was getting to go to the Autosport Awards, which was a room of all the drivers. You know, Lewis Hamilton was there. He was the world champion. Jenson Button walked past me to go to the bathroom, and I nearly fainted. Like, genuinely, I was just like, mouth open the
Yeah,
entire
I can imagine.
I'm in motorsport. Like, this is insane. And
Yeah.
I'd never, like, this is a really long answer to your question, but I'd never thought that that was going to be an opportunity for me to work in motorsport. It was being in the right place at the right time, but then showing how passionate I was about motorsport has always helped me. I hark on about it. I used to talk about it whenever I could. And, but I made the tough call to leave motorsport and go and work back in automotive. So I joined CarThrottle in 2016, and there was no more motorsport, and it was tough, but I knew I had to do it because when I was there, I was working solely in social media. Like, social was it. And 6 months into the job, my CEO goes, "Oh, have you heard of this brand? It's called WTF1." And I was like, yeah, it's the best thing on social media in motorsport. Yeah, I've heard of it. Like, oh, well, yeah, we've just bought it. And I was like, oh my God, like, genuinely. And
That's crazy.
I almost lost my job by how passionately I wanted to work on WTF1. So
okay.
it was never
You didn't like just go crazy and start throwing chairs around, and they're like, we might have to let you go, Jess.
No. I was like, I need to work on this brand. Like, I have to work on this brand. This brand is going to be huge. It's going to change motorsport media forever. And I really want to be a part of that. And I really think I can take it into its next stage of evolution. But my CEO at the time didn't think there was a role, like a full-time role for me to do that yet, because what he was trying to do was just grow it and just let it grow. And I was like, no, we can make money from this. We can take it to the next level, but we need partnerships. And to do that, you're going to need someone to manage that. And so I got given a month to prove that it was a viable role for me to do, because I was head of sales at CarThrottle, and I was asking to move across, leave a gap, and then like make this happen for this new brand. And it got to the wire, and I thought I was going to be out on my ass and not have a job. But I made it happen, and I made it work. And then again, like, just showing off how passionate I am about this industry and what the media does has kind of allowed me opportunities to talk. You know, I was invited to the FIA steward seminar to speak about social media and its role in that. Just being vocal and taking opportunities. Genuinely, anytime an opportunity came my way and it felt like it was the right thing, I grabbed it with both hands and I ran with it, and just believed in myself that I was the right person to be doing this. And it's got me to where I am today. So a mixture of fortunate circumstances, a bit of luck, but a lot of just hard work and belief is how I got to where I am now. So
absolutely, that's the thing. I think couldn't have put it better myself. There's always going to be opportunity, and for everyone and anyone, like anyone listening, like, I think some people as well feel a bit guilty at times that when opportunity and luck opens up to them, but it's up to you whether you actually, make the most of it and take these opportunities, because there's always going to be opportunities. There's always going to be things coming up. There's always going to be things taken away, difficult decisions you're going to have to make in life. But yeah, as long as you're kind of sticking to those principles, and it sounds like, you've had quite as much as you didn't know exactly what you wanted to do, you had kind of a clear goal in mind, and obviously that's resulted in the JESS that is now. So what's your technical role now? What's the actual job title?
It's director of digital.
Director, because of the bandwidth. It was like the director of
Director of digital strategy.
Director
did that
of
work?
digital. That worked. Director of digital strategy. Director. That in itself, decent.
I direct people. Yeah, I'm like, yeah. But I don't know if you saw my my story about that. Like, I knew I wanted to get out of sales, and I needed a plan, and I wasn't really sure what that was going to be. But we had my parents took me for lunch, and there was in this restaurant, like, all the tablecloths were made out of like brown paper, because they're trying to be edgy. But we basically drew out my entire career path on this tablecloth in pencil. Wow. And we were talking about, you know, well, what are you interested in? What are you passionate? What do you think your strengths are? And did all this. And then at the end of it, and I will admit, a bottle of wine later, not just for me.
It helps.
Dead. But yeah, you know, a bit of inspiration. My stepdad wrote out on a piece of paper and said, in 2nd of May 2020, Jess will be publishing director of Autosport. And so that was in 2015 that we did this. And he wrote the date. It was 5 years from that moment. This is it. And I folded it up and I put it in my purse and I carried it with me genuinely every single day. And I only day after I was made director of digital strategy for Autosport, but also motorsport.com and GP racing. I opened it up and I was like, holy shit, like this happened. And I think there is a massive power in like manifestation and looking at what you want to do and believing that it's going to happen and making it happen for yourself. So it was kind of like one of those like moments where what I planned years ago actually came to be, which was mental.
So Jess, question now, outside of F1, in an alternative reality, a horrific reality where motorsport does not exist, what are you doing? What's your day job? What's paying the bills at home?
Genuinely, it's weird to think about like not doing what you're doing, but we kind of touched on it earlier, but like I always fancied a career in acting, but kind of never really chased that when I was younger, because my parents were very much like, acting can be your hobby. You need to do academics and study and get a good degree. So that kind of fell by the wayside. But I think I found my old yearbook the other day from like secondary school.
Nice.
And I was voted most likely to be on The Apprentice because
really?
I was always doing like business stuff, and I always thought I was going to be a businesswoman. I've got a mug that my friend made me. We went like to one of those pottery painting places, and I still have that mug like years later. And again, like she drew a picture of me, and I've got like, I'm on the phone and I've got a briefcase. And so I think I would have just been some kind of businesswoman, in what or how, I don't know, but probably something in business, just based on like, I just wanted to be successful, I think is and I mean, what is the definition of success? But I think it was always just like, I wanted to be a businesswoman with like power and the ability to like do some cool stuff and kind of build something. So I think that's pretty much all else that I've ever thought about doing.
Have you ever considered going on The Apprentice?
I used to. It's a bit like sad almost, because it used to be like proper high acumen level business people were on it, and not to take away from the people that are on it now, but it just seems to be more based on the personalities, and that's fine, because it's a television show, right? And it's got to be entertaining. And actually someone from my school was on, not series just gone, the series before. So I was like, damn it, my yearbook didn't come true. He beat me to it.
It did for them.
But yeah. So yeah, I had thought about it though.
I actually, I tried out for it last year, year before last year, I can't remember. I just went to the first round thing. It was just, it was up in the city. It was near Tottenham Court Road, and I just went to. So you do the online application, and then they said, okay, and then you go, and there's like loads of people. There was like 150 people sitting around it. I was sitting around for about 6 hours. But it was nice. There was lots of people to talk to. You could tell there was a few Muppets there, and a few like, you know, and yeah, literally they take you into a room, and then they ask you, look, you've got like a minute to say why you should be Lord Sugar. I can't call him that, man. Why you should be his business partner. And yeah, I just kind of talked about my idea and not enough about me, really. So yeah, you know, there was some proper, like, there was this guy who was proper quiet the whole time, and then as soon as we got into the thing, he was like, yeah, I'm going to show everyone what's what. I'm a big time Charlie. I was like, you're so fake, mate. Like, it was
I
funny, but
know.
it was a fun experience. It was a
Yeah.
fun experience. You talked about your dramatic past as a youngster. Secondary school, Jess, like, who was she? What were you like at secondary school? How were you kind of different to who you are now? Because obviously we all change, but like, in what ways? Like, when you look back on those days, what do you think?
Well, first off, I was an emo. So
Were you?
I had
I would
off
not have
black
said
hair.
that.
I know, right? So I had off black hair. I had a fringe. I wore like spotty headbands, and I used to wear like sweatbands.
Mm.
And listen to My Chemical Romance and Brand New and like Blink-182 and all that stuff. Like proper like, yeah, proper emo kid,
Brilliant.
hardcore eyeliner vibes going on.
Brilliant.
But I was, in terms of like who I was, I was definitely less confident. She worried about a lot of things in terms of like where she was going to be and who she was. And I think that's true for a lot of people at that age, because you are kind of at that point where people are asking you like, what are you going to do in your life? And no one has a clue what they're going to do. But like she was, she did well. She, I was always good at school. I liked school. I enjoyed school for the most part. But yeah, definitely lacked confidence and belief in herself. So if I could go back and tell her like, gonna be fine, it would be definitely to just believe in yourself a bit more, because you're gonna be all right in the end. It's all gonna be fine.
Oh, absolutely. Good advice, mate. Great. And then obviously, so that's secondary school, Jess. What about university, Jess? Because, so for me personally, I found that actually my uni years I changed the most between the ages of like 18 and 22 when I left. So what about you? Like, how did you change over that period of time?
I mean, definitely. I think, people say uni years are the best years of your life. And I do think they were very good years, but yeah, they were definitely years of change. I actually chose to live abroad for a year. So I lived in Switzerland, Geneva.
Wow. Very nice.
Yeah, that teaches a lot about yourself, because just going off to university, you start becoming an independent person. I think living in a foreign country where parents aren't as close and you can't just run home if something bad happens, you have to kind of deal with it yourself. So while I was out actually, I got and had to kind of sleep rough for a night, which was, that changes you as a person.
Wow. Damn.
You just kind of like, you just kind of, I mean, luckily, like, nothing, I wasn't harmed or anything, but you just, experiences like that stick with you, but they also teach you actually how resilient you can be. So but I think, I let a lot of things happen to me, especially in like, not to go into too much detail, but like in relationships as well. Like, I never felt good enough about myself, and so I let people in my life that kind of took advantage of me and didn't treat me very well at all. And I think that was genuinely just a confidence thing and lacking in that self-belief, which kind of was there at secondary school. But by the end of it, I came out so much stronger as a person. And yeah, so I think those years, regardless of what you come out with, whether you come out with a piece of paper with a bunch of initials on at the end of your name, just having that ability to seek your own independence and to actually discover how strong you are just like, I wouldn't have traded them for the world. So yeah, I mean, she had a bit of fun along the way, as we all do, hopefully. But yeah, like, a lot of change happens in those years, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. You do a lot of growing up and maturing to another level, because moving out of home and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, mate, that's crazy. And I think like you said about kind of with relationships and that, where you don't have that, when you're in a place where you say you're low on confidence and you don't have that kind of love for yourself, then I think that's when, like, from my experience as well, like I was like that towards the tail end of kind of secondary school, like super low on confidence. And like I would, not that I had any girls interested in me back in the day. I was very single at secondary school, let's just say that. But yeah, like when you don't have that love and kind of respect for yourself, then I guess that's where you can allow, and like people I know of and know who are in like not great relationships, and a lot of the time that is reflective of, you know, they're not confident, they're not happy in their own skin, and you know, again, if you talk about like confidence, and you know, a lot of people, if they talk to other people how they talk to themselves, it would, like, you wouldn't tolerate it. But people can be so down on themselves, and it can be a really hard kind of thing to get out of. And like you and me to an extent as well, like I think having gone through those experiences, it kind of helps you, you know, come out the other side as a much more kind of confident and happy and content person, because you've been through those trials and tribulations, I suppose.
Absolutely.
You left university, you had your degree, but in terms of outside of all of that, prime weekend away for Jess, what's she doing? What's you've got a weekend, there's you know, who are you with, where have you gone, what, like, is it sun, is it chill in the middle of nowhere, is it loads of people, is it no people? What's your dream weekend?
I mean, I'm very fortunate to be doing the job I do, because outside of motorsport, traveling is my biggest next passion, I think. So the fact that a lot of the time my job is coupled with that, I'm very fortunate. So, you know, my dream weekend is somewhere in Europe, like eating amazing food, drinking wine, and hopefully getting some sunshine. So whether that's with mates or with significant others, like that's definitely what I gravitate towards. Like if I could pick anything that I could do at a weekend, it'd definitely be just going off and discovering and exploring somewhere new and somewhere different, where you can just escape the day to day. Because I think it's very easy as well, like when you work as hard as people do, especially in this day and age, like it doesn't ever feel like it stops. It's like, for me, that's like my escapism, and it's the time I get to read anymore, which sounds sad, because obviously you can make time for reading, but I'm very much like, I have to almost like consume a book in one sitting, or it doesn't happen. So yeah, it's kind of just, you get to escape everything that you usually do, and like especially being attached to like social media and stuff, it's of getting away from that. So yeah,
it's true. It's like it's a job in a whole other way. I mean, have you come across anyone who's, because of the fact you work in social media, because I've essentially been from a very like, my job is digital kind of content production, so you know, graphic design, video, animation, all of that. But like, have you found that people haven't taken it maybe seriously because it's social? Because I have, for sure.
In terms of taking me seriously, or
Taking your job
the
seriously, I suppose. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I guess maybe do you know what, I don't think so, actually. Again, I'm really lucky in that space. Like my parents are always kind of gushing about me and what I do, and the fact that I work in motorsport. And you know, I don't think I've ever come across, like, people don't just go, oh, all you do is make memes. Because I think you know, I've been able to show them, well, okay, we make memes, but you know, here's me interviewing Lewis Hamilton, or here's
that's
me,
kind of a trump
like,
card, isn't it? Like, no one can say anything to you now. I interview Lewis Hamilton. Mic drop.
So, yeah. I'll just leave that there. But you know, yeah, I think it's what you back it up with, right? And not that anyone should feel they have to back it up, because I guess there's just going to be people in the world that don't understand why social media is as important as it is, especially in our industries. So as much as you know, you should be proud of what you do, you also maybe just need to accept that some people are just not going to get it, and that's okay, you know, because you just need to do you.
Right and all, mate. Right and all. Well, talking of, so you mentioned reading, but outside of F1, as well as maybe that, like, what other passions, hobbies, pastimes? Obviously, I know, you know, with all the traveling with F1, you might not have maybe as much time as you'd like. But yeah, what other passions does Jess have outside of F1? Because I think the reason I ask this is that when you watch, you know, whether it's football, YouTube, or any, it's very easy to get, oh, this is their whole life, this is all they do. But actually, like, we're all just people. We all have other interests and intrigue. Like, is there anything particular you think people would like be surprised about that you like or are into?
So I guess I don't know. We're a big rugby family. So I'm originally from Northampton.
Mm-hmm.
But my mum is from Leicester. So I'm a Northampton Saints fan, and she's a Leicester Tigers fan, as is everybody else pretty much in my family. So I'm like
Right.
the only Saints supporter. So when there's the Midlands derby,
Yeah.
it gets quite heated in our
Quite
house.
tasty.
But yeah, like I've always been big into my sports. So that I'd say is probably my next passion. But I'm also, I don't think I've ever told anyone this. You're getting another exclusive.
Here we go.
I've been told I can hold a tune. I love singing. I love music.
Really
So
interesting.
yeah.
Have you ever
So
been on
I've
any
been
kind of
told,
nights
yeah.
out with the WTF1 guys and got up on the mic, done a bit of karaoke, or
So
have you kept that to yourself?
Matty is an incredible singer as well, and he was
Really?
actually on. Yeah, he auditioned for X Factor.
What?
Yeah, I know, right? So him and I have spent a night in karaoke booths in various places in London, like singing The Greatest Showman
Oh,
and
what a soundtrack.
just basically any banger really that we
Yeah.
can belt out. So yes, there have been. Tommy's a little shyer around it, but
Yeah, fair.
yeah, Matty and I love a good sing along. So that's probably a little nugget that people don't know a lot about, but yeah.
Amazing. That's the kind of thing I'll clip up and put at the start because, or just like Photoshop Matty's head onto Ollie Murs or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Amazing. Right. Well, Jess, thank you. I'm not done with you yet, though. I've got a little, before we had this conversation, I sent you over some questions, but I didn't include this bit because I want to get straight to the point answers. I've got a little quick fire round.
God, okay.
So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and it's nothing that deep. So you're safe.
Okay.
Yeah, I've picked a few different things. So let's fire away. Right. Favorite crisps.
Salt and vinegar. Walkers.
Favorite TV show growing up.
Oh, growing up. The Bill. I love
The
the Bill.
Bill. Go on,
Yeah.
the Bill. That was a quality. What a left field shout that is. I was expecting like SpongeBob. That was mine.
That's weird, isn't it? I don't know where that even came from, but I just remember I just got flashbacks there, Tomo. I was like, oh my God, I'm a kid again and I'm watching the Bill and I want to be a
Maybe that's where it came from. I know you said earlier that the whole murder scene, crime scene.
Yeah.
Clean up.
That's definitely it.
Brilliant. Well, I was going to ask favourite sport outside of F1, but I'm assuming that's rugby.
Rugby, yeah.
Yeah. Favourite road car?
Oh gosh. Okay, like realistic or
Just
dreams?
dream, whatever.
Alright. So yeah, my favorite car is something called an AC Cobra, which is like
Shelby.
American sports car. Yeah, that's
Shelby,
my favorite.
Beautiful. No, good shout. Remember that was on the old Gran Turismo games, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah.
It was in the blue with the white stripes down the middle.
Absolutely impossible to drive because it's a powerhouse. But it's a beaut of a piece of engineering.
Absolute beaut. You're on death row for crimes announced to us. What's your final meal?
Oh God, I love sushi. So probably some Japanese feast of
Very
some
nice.
kind. Yeah.
Very nice. Because I'm not a fish fan, so.
I
do love Wagamama though. I love a good ramen.
Ramen's awesome.
Ramen's
awesome.
Cool. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
You got any pets at a family home or at all?
Not right now, but we used to have cats and dogs, and I love cats still, but dogs are just like, we don't deserve dogs. They are the most wonderful creatures on this planet.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of the same now. I used to have cats growing up, but since I got Minton, he's I've never loved anything so much in my life. Pepsi or Coke?
Coke. Pepsi is crap.
Ooh, controversial. Oh, we got some Valtteri Bottas level of hate here. Is that why? Because Bottas's helmet is blue. Is there something there? Maybe.
Is that what it is? I'm getting triggered by it. Maybe that's the crux of it all.
Brilliant. Okay, Prosecco or beer?
Oh, I like both,
That's a
but
good question.
I like both. I'm gonna be stereotypical and go for prosecco. I
Good.
can probably drink it.
Yes. Love it.
Probably drink it longer than beer.
I hate beer and I love prosecco. So,
Really?
you know, I'm very
There you
unmasculine
go.
in that form.
We should have a bottle at some point.
Absolutely. You know what? I literally last night while I was editing, over the course because, you know, we're in isolation, so it's okay. From like 2, I had a whole bottle of prosecco to myself.
Good
But
work.
I stretched it out. You know, it was reduced at Tesco, so we're good. And then everyone thinks I'm alcoholic on my channel. I promise I'm not. I just, you know, it settles me down a bit.
Functioning though.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the important.
It's all good. Exactly, Jess. And last but by no means least, it's a good one. Who's better, Matt or Tommy? Come on, quick fire.
No, you can't possibly have me say. That is horrific. That's like choosing between my children. Like, what? I can't answer. I'm sorry, no comment. I'm not answering that question.
Conscientious objector. I thought I'd get that answer. I just thought I'd chuck that in. Just in case you might have just gone Tommy straight away and be like, oh God, what's happened?
Yeah, I might have done. Who'd have known?
That was the only dodgy question I put in here. Don't worry, Jess. It's all good.
That was sneaky.
So, going to round up. I've got a couple more questions. We're going to go back to F1 for these. If you could change one fundamental in F1, okay? So you're Jess Carey with the moustache, but I guess maybe.
Rock a moustache. Yeah, I'd rock that.
Stick on moustache. What would you do if you could change one kind of, I know obviously the regulation changes are all coming in and that's great, but obviously like maybe outside of that, is there anything else? Or just one element of the race? So for example, for me, I think I would like to see a super pole style for, you know, so have Q1, Q2 kind of the same as, and then Q3, one car goes out at a time. That's an example of one. So what would be yours?
For me, I think it is more about the allocation of resource. So I would definitely scrap the kind of historical payments.
Yes.
Based on how you've, I would definitely get rid of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it'd be super controversial, but that's probably what you'll want.
Go on, Jess.
I want more of a move to homologated F1, so more parts being kind of spec. So I don't think F1 should be a spec series because it will not attract the kinds of teams that we'd want, like the likes of Mercedes. Like, why would a Mercedes and a Ferrari compete against Williams if, you know, they're all running the same cars and they don't get a chance to show off? But I definitely think that there can be more. There's still enough room for them to show their engineering prowess without really, really impacting teams like a Haas and a Williams, where you know it's just not competitive. You can't compete; it's impossible. So, I think in terms of they'd probably be the two things that I would get rid of, as well as maybe like get rid of the tire compound rule. Like just let them use whatever tires they want, and you can still have mandatory. I mean, everyone's still going to have pit stops, but change that compound rule, because I think it can, like, it's too predictable really. So I would love to just be able to see like how people can race on track and not have to worry about that too much. But they'd probably be the two main things. So yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it's a balancing act, isn't it? It's you've got to protect the integrity of the, you know, like you say, teams being able to come in and be, you know, create these amazing new systems, but you've got to have the racing tight, otherwise no one's going to watch. So good answer. I like them, Jess. Very good. And then my second last question. The last question is going to be a banger, actually. How do you see the sport? So 30 years time, long way away, 2050. How do you think, because I've done a lot of videos on Formula E and talking about the future of F1, and a lot of people have said they think FE and F1 might combine. Personally, I don't think so. I think there's a space for both, because beyond the power unit, they're very different fundamentally as well. But how do you anticipate, maybe what's one big change that you foresee in the future?
I think it's inevitable that it's going to move to maybe. I think eventually it will be all electric. And the thing is like racing is always going to exist. It's just about how that looks. And yeah, I'm kind of in the idea that maybe I think I agree with you in that there's a space for both, but I don't see how they run side by side if they eventually become the essentially the same thing. Because I think whilst I'm a big I think it's a good thing. I think it's done amazing things in a short amount of time. Big supporter of it. I think this season it's a shame that it's on pause, but the caliber of driver of teams have never been better. The USP that they've got beyond being an all electric series and racing on street tracks, they don't really have I would argue they don't have a strong enough USP that if F1 decided that it was going to go electric, which currently they're not allowed to do, is Formula E is protected in that sense by the FIA. But if the FIA come to it and they're looking at losing Formula One over losing Formula E, it's going to come down to, as a lot of these things do, who's making the most money and who's bringing in the most money. So I think it's going to be an interesting time to think about how those two are either going to coexist. Because it's like, for me, I don't think the W Series is going to last forever. Or at least I would hope the W Series wouldn't last forever. But there's a lot of really cool technologies coming into place that maybe it would see Formula One not going down the route of all electric. There are some really cool people in the automotive space that are producing they're still technically combustion engines, but they produce zero emissions, which is obviously very much in line with where F1 wants to be. So maybe that would be a route over becoming an all electric series. But at the end of the day, without kind of OEMs and car manufacturers investing in the sport, if it's not if F1 doesn't go down the same route that they're going down in terms of mobility and future planning and turning their motorsport stuff into road car stuff, they won't have any teams in it. So it's inevitable that it's going to follow the track of automotive manufacturers. But yeah, I think it will still exist. It's just whether those two things will both coexist. I'm unsure of, and I'm probably in the space of the likelihood is that they'll merge in some way.
Yeah, I think I feel that at the moment, again, differentiating factors. Obviously, you've got the types of circuits, you've got the power unit, of course, you've got stuff like not the fan boost, the what's the other boost that they have in Formula E? Yeah, the so there's that. There's obviously the nature of it being much more of a spec series as well. But yeah, who knows? We ain't got the answers, have we?
No. We're just along for the ride.
Exactly, we're just along for the ride. Exactly, mate. And we're just going to see how it goes. But yeah, I think a lot of people have said that they think that F1 is days are numbered. I think kind of I have faith in Liberty in terms of that they're not just going to let this multi-billion dollar thing that they've purchased just die. Like, these changes will come in incrementally over time. But maybe that will result in them. Maybe it will be stronger bringing them together.
I'm a supporter of both. I think both are great. It's just, how do they combat what is going to be quite a volatile and difficult future in terms of politically, environmentally, socially? It's a bit of a minefield for motorsport at the moment. So.
Absolutely. The politics are going to play a huge part, aren't they? It's not just the technology. I think the technology is pretty much there. It's a lot of hurdles to jump through. And as we saw with the whole Australian GP debacle, because as far as I've read and seen, that the big reason that the announcement was delayed so much was bureaucracy and, getting all these different people to who made the decision, blah, 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 all that nonsense. Unfortunately, it is a roadblock, but we'll get there. We'll see. But cool. Thank you, Jess. And one more question. And I actually know the answer to this question, but it's just I fundamentally disagree with you on it. So I thought I'd chuck it in at the end. What is your favourite F1 2020 livery? Tell the ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, you know what I'm going to say. I love the Alpha Tauri livery. It's my favourite. Why do you hate it? What have you got against it? Have you seen it?
It's just uninspiring. It looks like a fridge. It looks like a Becco, like one of them ones that had to be recalled because it started catching fire spontaneously. I don't see the appeal in it at all. I did a ranked list of liveries and I put it bottom, and it's got the most dislikes of any video I've ever received.
Because you're fundamentally
probably you just disliking it constantly.
All my burner accounts jumped on that video and disliked it. I got all my fans. I told everybody that follows me, go and dislike this video.
So you are an influencer, Jess. You are an influencer.
Yeah.
Point proven. I just don't get it. But so I think they could have done a better job with it. I'll say that with the colours.
What's your favourite then? What was number one for you?
My favourite is the Haas, actually. I think it's very smart and very closely followed by the Williams. I'm hearing silence. Is this stunned silence? Is this?
I don't know if I can continue this.
Well, this is what I put it at the end, so I'm prepared for a rage quit if necessary.
Yeah, genuinely, like what?
Haas, I love the Haas. It's like it's proportionally. I like the little red chevron at the front and the sides, and
Wow. Oh, you're all about visual content, my guy. Like the Haas looks like a B-Tech Alpha.
B-Tech Alpha, Jess. Come on. I'm gonna have to bleep that. I can't.
You're gonna censor.
I told you could swear on this, but I didn't say anything about sacrilege and
No,
that's the beauty. You know what I find really interesting though, because genuinely, like that's the Alpha Tauri is my least favorite, and it's genuinely your favorite. But it just goes to show, isn't it, like how perspectives can be. I find it fascinating how like perspectives can be so different on stuff. Like we're all seeing the same thing, yet some people interpret it one way or the other.
And guess what? We can agree to disagree and still be friends at the end of it. Look at that.
Virtually shake hands, not shake hands, bump elbows or whatever you need to do.
Yeah, no touching. No touching.
Not allowed. But yeah, there we have it, Jess. Thank you so much. Honestly, really appreciate you taking the time. And I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it's been fun.
Yeah, it has genuinely has been a real good. I can't believe we've been talking for as long as we have. I feel like why would anyone want to know this much about me? But no, it was really enjoyable. Thanks so much for having me. No problem at all, mate. And obviously, good luck with your new amazing opportunity. And fingers crossed it goes well for you. I'm sure you'll do an amazing job. And hopefully you'll be in the office soon enough. I mean, I don't know how many months we're going to be stuck at home for, but it must be a bit difficult to do things from home. I mean, how much of your job do you think will you be able to do most of it still, do you feel? Yeah. I think the only thing that will get affected really is the ability to create content out in the real world. But there's some amazing people that work at the network that have the most amazing 3D modeling and 2D animation and all that kind of thing. So there'll still be plenty of content coming out on the channels. It will just be less kind of real world focused or human to human focused. So, but we're finding ways around it. We're podcasting remotely like we're doing now, and all that kind of thing. Just try and combat those niggles. But yeah, and doing all the esports stuff like this Sunday. Absolutely. We're working with the Loche guys on their Not the Bahrain Grand Prix. So yeah, definitely there's going to be so much stuff that is going to still happen. So hopefully we won't be too affected more than anybody else will be. So yeah. Amazing. And yeah, to everyone watching, I'll put Jess's socials in the description so you can give her a follow, give her some love and some support. And yeah, thank you everyone for watching. Thank you, Jess, for taking the time. And